Welcome to your deep dive. Today, we're going on a journey exploring Islamic wisdom. We'll be looking at Surah Luqman from the Quran. You've given us an English transliteration, so we'll be focusing on the meaning behind the words, those themes that still resonate today.
Surah Luqman, it really is. It's like a guidebook full of advice and guidance. It's amazing how it uses the story of Luqman, this wise, figure, to talk about everything, like gratitude, even the relationship between humans and creation.
Yeah, and it's really interesting to me that we're using this English transliteration. Makes me think, how would the beauty of the original Arabic change these messages? But I guess first, we have to understand where Surah Luqman fits in the Quran.
Right, so it's the 31st chapter. It's named after Luqman. Islamic tradition says that he got wisdom directly from God. But it's not, just a story about him. The surah mixes his guidance to his son with these bigger pronouncements about God, creation, and what we're here for.
So it uses this like father-son thing to ask some pretty big questions.
Exactly. And one of the biggest themes is gratitude. Verse 12 is a good example of this. It says, "And we bestowed upon Luqman wisdom, be grateful to Allah. And whoever is grateful for the benefit of himself. And whoever denies his favor, then indeed Allah is free of need and praiseworthy."
I think what really hits home for me is that the way it connects gratitude with growing as a person. It's not just saying thanks to God. It's about how realizing those blessings can really change us.
Yeah.
Have you ever felt that in your own life where gratitude made things better for you?
Oh, absolutely. There was this time I was having a tough time at work, just feeling so negative. And then I started thinking about things I was grateful for. My health, my family, the fact that I could learn from my mistakes. That change in how I was thinking, it helped me be stronger and find a new way forward.
That's a great example of how gratitude, or shuk in Arabic, it's like a spark for personal growth. And I find the phrase "Allah is free of need" really, really interesting. It's like our gratitude isn't about filling some need that God has, but it's more about recognizing our own place in the universe.
That's, yeah, a beautiful way to put it. It's about being humble, realizing that we're not self-sufficient. We depend on something bigger than us.
And that brings us to something Lucan tells his son in verse 13. "O my son, do not associate anything with Allah. Indeed, association with him is great injustice."
This idea of shirk, associating partners with God, it's something I'd love to understand better. What makes it so important in Islam?
Well, shirk goes against Tawhid, the oneness of God. It's considered the biggest injustice because it messes with that pure, direct relationship between us and the divine. Islam believes that God is the only creator, the only sustainer, and the only master of everything. To say those qualities belong to something else, that's like going against that basic truth. So it's more than just avoiding idols. It's about understanding that God is totally unique and making sure that nothing else takes that main spot in our hearts and minds.
Exactly. It's about protecting that pure belief. It's about realizing our connection with the divine shouldn't have any other influences or distractions.
It's really interesting how Surah Luqman goes from these huge ideas about God to something so personal. How parents and children relate to each other. Verse 14 stresses how important it is to honor your parents. And we have enjoined upon man care for his parents. His mother carried him, increasing her in weakness upon weakness, and his weaning is in 2 years. Be grateful to me and to your parents. To me is the final destination.
It's a really beautiful passage. It talks about how much parents give, especially mothers, all that sacrifice and love. It reminds us to be thankful to them, treat them with kindness and respect.
But the verse goes on, and it seems to be talking about a potential problem. "But if they endeavor to make you associate with me that of which you have no knowledge, do not obey them, but accompany them in this world with appropriate kindness, and follow the way of those who turn back to me in repentance. Then to me will be your return, and I will inform you about what you used to do." What do you think about this part?
I think it recognizes that things can be complicated in families, especially when what you believe clashes with what your parents want. It offers a way to handle that. Obeying your parents is really important in Islam, but this verse makes it clear that God comes first.
So it's like finding a balance, honoring your parents, but also staying true to what you believe.
Yeah, exactly. And even when you might disagree with your parents about faith, the surah says to still be respectful and kind. It's about knowing which obligations are more important, but still showing compassion and empathy.
It's amazing how Surah Luqman goes back and forth between these really personal family things and these huge ideas about the universe. We talked about gratitude and honoring your parents, but there's also this thing about using reason and what you see to understand God's signs.
Right, that's a big part of how the Quran approaches faith. It doesn't just say, believe this. It wants us to really look at the world around us. Like, take verse 20. It says, "Do you not see that Allah has made subject to you whatever is in the heavens and whatever is on the earth, and has completed his blessings upon you, both apparent and hidden? But of the people is he who disputes about Allah without knowledge or guidance or an enlightening book from him."
It's like it's saying, look around, use your senses, use your brain to really get these wonders of creation. It's not blind faith. It's about trying to understand through what's revealed and what you figure out yourself.
Exactly. Seeking knowledge is huge in Islam. The Quran is a guide. It gives us light, but it also wants us to observe, think, really use our heads.
Yeah, there's that verse about people arguing about God without knowledge or guidance. It almost seems like real faith isn't about shutting down questions, but thinking about them carefully.
Absolutely. It's about using the wisdom from the scriptures and the things we learn from life to get a deeper understanding.
Looking at these verses, I can't help but notice how beautiful the language is. Even translated, there's this rhythm, these images that make you feel a sense of awe.
I know what you mean. The Quran is known for its eloquence, the way it uses words to express these deep spiritual truths. Even in translation, you can feel the power of the metaphors, how they connect us to the amazingness of creation.
For example, verse 29, it says, "He has made subject to you the night and the day, the sun and the moon, and the stars are subjected by his command. Indeed, in that are signs for a people who reason." The way it describes the stars and everything moving together, it's like a symphony, but in space, and God's conducting it.
Such a beautiful image. It shows how ordered and precise creation is. The way planets move, the seasons changing, how balanced nature is, these all point to a greater intelligence, a divine plan.
It reminds you that even when life seems messy, there's still this order underneath.
And that order, according to the Quran, is a reflection of God's wisdom and power.
Thinking about Surah Luqman makes me wonder how these old teachings fit in today's world. What do you think is still really relevant for us now?
Well, what I find fascinating is how Surah Luqman talks about these big cosmic ideas and ND, our everyday lives. It mentions the heavens and the earth, then focuses on a father and son, giving advice for regular stuff. It's like saying our lives are connected to this huge universe, ND, the details of our relationships.
Yeah, like that saying, think globally, act locally. We're part of something bigger, but what we do affects our little corner of the world too.
Right. And Surah Luqman says every action matters, even the small ones. How we talk to people, how we treat our families, how we act in our communities, it all makes a difference.
I'm really struck by how much the surah stresses learning and understanding. It goes against that stereotype of blind faith. It wants us to use our hearts and our minds when it comes to faith.
Absolutely. And it reminds us that learning never stops. There's always something new to learn, to explore, to figure out.
That idea of lifelong learning, it's so important. It's about staying curious, being open to different ways of thinking.
And knowing that we don't know everything, the more we learn, the more we realize how much we don't know. That keeps us humble and open to growing instead of being stuck in our ways.
It's interesting how Surah Luqman uses nature to help us understand God. Even if you're not religious, there's something powerful about thinking about how big the universe is or how beautiful a flower is.
It's a language everyone can get right. The beauty and complexity of nature can make anyone feel awe, no matter what they believe. Surah Luqman just uses those observations to show that there must be a creator.
Like it's saying, just look around you, the proof is everywhere.
Yeah, it's inviting us to think about the mysteries of the universe, to see how everything's connected. It reminds us that we're part of something so much bigger than just ourselves.
And that brings us back to gratitude, which is so central to Surah Luqman. When we understand our place in the grand scheme of things, we should feel thankful for life and live each day with purpose and appreciation.
I agree. It's about finding joy in the little things, being amazed by what's around us, realizing that every breath is a blessing.
The Surah's message about death and judgment also feels really important now. Verse 33, it's a powerful reminder that life doesn't last forever. And do not let the worldly life delude you, and be not deceived about Allah by the deceiver. Indeed, Allah alone has knowledge of the hour and sends down the rain, and knows what is in the wombs. And no soul perceives what it will earn tomorrow, and no soul perceives in what land it will die. Indeed, Allah is knowing and acquainted.
It's a serious message, but it can also be freeing. Knowing that our time is limited can make us want to live more intentionally, with purpose. It helps us focus on what truly matters and make the most of the time we have.
Yeah, it's like a call to live a life that means something, knowing that our actions matter, not just now, but in the afterlife too.
Exactly. It encourages us to do our best in everything, to develop those good qualities that will benefit us and everyone else. It's about living according to our values and knowing that we'll be judged for our choices.
Wow, as we're wrapping up our deep dive into Surah Luqman, I'm just struck by how much wisdom is packed into these verses. It's really amazing how it blends these practical tips for everyday life with these deep thoughts about God, creation, and like what our purpose is.
Yeah, you know what gets me? It's the focus on balance. It's not just about being personally devout. It's about finding that harmony, between what's inside us and what we do, how we treat our families, and staying true to our faith, between logic and what's revealed to us.
That idea of balance, yeah, it really hits home. Life is complicated, and being wise is about handling all those twists and turns with, like, grace and purpose.
Yeah.
So thinking about everything we've discussed, what are some of the big takeaways for you? What are some pieces of wisdom that we can take with us from Surah Luqman?
I think one of the most powerful messages is how gratitude can change us. Remember verse 12 where Luqman tells his son to be grateful to Allah. It shows that gratitude isn't just a feeling you have for a moment. It's a choice, a way of living that can totally change how you see the world.
It's that shift in perspective. Yeah, it's so powerful. Instead of always thinking about what we don't have, gratitude lets us appreciate what we do have, even when things are tough. It's a reminder that every breath, every moment, it's a gift. It's a chance to experience how amazing and beautiful creation is.
And that feeling of appreciation, it can spread. It affects how we treat other people. It inspires us to be kind and generous. When we're grateful, we see the good in others. We forgive more easily. We build better, stronger relationships.
I also keep thinking about how the surah emphasizes seeking knowledge, really understanding things. It challenges that idea of blind faith. It encourages us to think, to ask questions, to always be looking for deeper meaning. It's like a reminder that learning never ends, and true wisdom comes from realizing we don't have all the answers and being open to new ideas.
Yeah, being humble is so important. It keeps us from getting stuck in our ways. It lets us grow and change throughout our lives. It's about accepting that some things are a mystery and knowing there's always more to discover, more to learn, more to be thankful for.
There's that verse about people arguing about God without knowledge or guidance. It sticks with me. It reminds me that true faith isn't about holding on to rigid beliefs. It's about trying to understand, using what's been revealed to us, a.n.d. our own reason, the wisdom from the scriptures, a.n.d. what we learn from life.
It's about approaching faith with an open heart and a curious mind, letting ourselves be transformed by the search for truth. And Surah Luqman shows us that that search, it never really ends. It's a process of questioning what we believe, expanding our understanding, and getting closer to the divine.
Surah Luqman also tells us that our actions matter, not just now, but in the afterlife too. It's like it's telling us to live with purpose, knowing we'll be judged for what we do.
That idea can be a bit scary, but also empowering. It motivates us to do our best, to cultivate good qualities that will benefit everyone, and to make the world a better place.
Well, as we finish up this deep dive, I just feel really grateful that we had this chance to explore these timeless teachings. Surah Luqman gives us a guide for living a meaningful life, a life that's based on gratitude, humility, and always wanting to learn.
Yeah, it reminds us that we're all part of something much bigger, connected to all of creation, and responsible for living our lives in a way that honors both our own journeys and our shared humanity.
Thanks for joining us on this journey through Surah Luqman. It's been a really enriching experience, and I hope it inspires you to keep on exploring and reflecting.
It was great sharing these thoughts with you. May the wisdom of Surah Luqman guide us all toward lives filled with meaning, purpose, and connection.